Yeah, so a lot of eating, a lot of 3 meals, 4 meals a day, a lot of shakes, just getting in a routine of like getting up in the morning, eating, drinking chocolate milk, eating lunch, eating the right meal, adding the shake to that, dinner, eating, adding the salad, just a routine that stick with it. Sometimes throughout the season you get caught up in a lot of stuff, so the routine I have is pretty good now.
You talked about wanting to keep your legacy with Alabama and not going into the portal and going somewhere else. Has that come up in your conversation with NFL teams, the decision to just be an Alabama player in your career?
No, not really. I think it's more the fact of like why I went to Alabama, and I just told him like Alabama is the best place that get you prepared for the NFL. I fully believe that. I think with Coach Saban's infrastructure that he implemented there, and then Coach DeBoer coming in and keeping that same structure is super real, and it prepares you for the NFL better than most colleges, and I fully believe that, and I think that anybody who goes through there is going to be NFL ready.
What do you remember about the Todd Monken and when he recruited you while you were coming out?
I know he loves ball. I know he loves football, and I know that's what I love as well. Super smart guy. Remember him coming to my school at Georgia. Him and my dad actually have a great relationship because he coached at Southern Miss for a little bit. And his pedigree with all the NFL teams that he's been with and what he did with Lamar and at Georgia is just super real. So a lot of respect for him and the Browns organization. I think they made a great hire. Yeah, absolutely. I've got to talk to him and those guys, and just super cool. Got to work some ball, and that's what I want.
Ty, how is your dad's been a college coach for a while? What's your relationship with him, and how's he?
Yeah, so my dad's my best friend, right? Like a guy who loves football. He's my dad. Like I do talk to him almost every day. The fact that he can be able to put on dad goggles, put on coach goggles, and then be able to be my spiritual mentor, talk to me about faith, talk to me about just life in general is what all I could ask for in a father. So that's what I want to be. He's been a great role model for me and my siblings, and what they do, and my mom is a rock as well. She's a great sidekick for him, and they did a good job with me and my family.
Ty, have you met with the Steelers yet, and if so, how did that meeting go?
Yeah, it was great. Met with them. Coach McCarthy's the guy, man. It was funny, we'd go in there, ask a couple questions, and we were just, talking ball, going back and forth, talking about pass concepts, talking about protection, talking about situations. And it was cool to see all the quarterbacks he's worked with Dak, and Aaron Rodgers, and then, situations that's come up in his career that, hey, ask me about, and what I thought about it. And it was really cool because we were just, going back and forth, and, by the time that we were finished, it was felt like 5 minutes just because of how much fun we had. So, I love Coach McCarthy, love the Steelers, and love those guys, and I'm super excited to get to know them.
Ty, you met with Tim Davis?
Yeah, I did actually.
Was that a formal or informal meeting?
It was a formal meeting.
How did that go, and what did you kind of take away from the meeting with those guys?
Just a super great organization. I went in there, just had some fun with myself. Got to know those guys pretty good, and just had some fun. That's the biggest thing about these meetings. You know what I mean? Just be yourself, have some fun, talk some ball, and let everything else fall in God's plan.
Ty, are you 100% healthy for this process?
I am, yeah, 100% healthy. That's why I'm decided to throw and excited about it.
You often talk about your faith in football, and even today, you have a personal desire to kind of want to expand on that.
Yeah, of course, right. Like John 3:16 is a staple, but the one that I pride myself on is Michael 5:5, and it really just talks about God being your peace. In a stressful environment like the NFL is in football, and anxiety driven to where you want to perform so well and you want to impress everybody, but in reality, right? God's put you here for a reason, and saying His name and just praying, it gives me peace. And talking about something that I really love, which is my faith in football, really just gives me a great heartwarming feeling. And the fact that God's put me on this earth, I fully believe He put me on this earth for a bigger reason, to play football, and honor Him. So to be able to sit here talking to you guys at the the NFL Combine, and talk about my faith is just a step in the process of making sure that when I get to playing, that I honor Him even more. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, right, I got to play better. I got to have, accountability in that. I got to, make sure that we win those, big time games. I think that, this kind of happens sometimes in the sense of, right, like, we played better teams. We had better, they had better schemes, right? And, we just got to make it simple. We got to make the easy plays easy. Got to, stick to what we're good at. And I think a lot of the times, right, like us being banged up, we had some injuries. We just got to overcome it, and big players step up. But I'm really proud of the team. I'm not taking anything away from our team and what they did, right? Like, we won a playoff game on the road, coming down 17-0. We went to the Rose Bowl. We went to the SEC championship. That's a long season, guys. Like, I'm not trying to make an excuse by any means, but the fact that we started off the season the way we did and went all the way down and had a really good game stretch. Like, super proud of my teammates and super happy for what they did, and I love those guys, and super proud and to be an Alabama Crimson Tide.
Guys, you're going through this process. Can it be difficult to shut out the noise of where you're being projected and what your draft stock people are saying is? Can that be harder than maybe it seems to totally shut out and lock in?
Well, yeah, I think, anytime that, your dreams are coming true, right, it's definitely hard. But at the same time, it really doesn't matter because, what matters what happens is, April 24th and 25th. Like, whether it's, controlling what you can control and being the best you can be, like, that's all that matters. So, I'm sitting up here today making sure that I'm the best, Ty Simpson talking to the media that I can be. So, no matter, where I'm projected, no matter where I go, I know that they're going to get the best Ty Simpson they possibly can.
There's been a long list of quarterbacks and defensive successful after just 1 year starting in college. When you were going through this process, why did you feel like now is the right time?
Yeah, first off, right, I feel like I'm ready. I'm a franchise quarterback. Like I said earlier, like the Alabama is, prepared you most for the NFL. With the infrastructure that they had and, the guys from Coach Saban, Coach DeBoer, Coach Grubb, all the coordinators that I had before, I run an NFL-type system. It's definitely prepared me for, saying those long play calls, saying those checks, making sure that, I get us in the right protection. And also as well, right, like, everybody talks about my stars, but I played in, other games besides that, and I've played against, really good NFL players. I think about my freshman year, right, like learning from the number 1 overall pick and Heisman Trophy winner, going on defense, going on scout team. I got Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, Henry To'oTo'o. I got Kool-Aid on one side. I got Terry on the other side. There's a number of, first and second round draft picks that, I went against and who I was in the locker room with. So, like I said, the Alabama locker room was as close as a locker room in the NFL as you can get.
You talked about playing or meeting with some of the AFC North teams. It's a cold weather, physical division. What has prepared you for playing in that cold weather?
Yeah, so we didn't really play in a cold game at Alabama. There were some cold games, some windy games. I think, Oklahoma was pretty cold. Ole Miss a couple years ago was pretty cold. But in high school, I played in a bunch of cold games. And really, like, the cold is just an external factor. Like, I can't worry about that, right? Like, I got to have a hand warmer, got to make sure my hands are dry. Like, just because it's cold doesn't mean I can't throw the ball. Yeah, I met with the Cardinals. This is my first interview, and just super great organization. Mr. Monty is a great guy. Coach LaFleur is a super ball guy. Coach Hackett, all those guys are they love football. They're a quarterback driven organization because they're very familiar with the quarterback position. And I would love to be a Cardinal. I think that they're a great organization. They got a young team, and I'd be super blessed to play for them. I have met with the Jets. I mean, it was great. Just talking ball, getting to know each other. Coach Wright is a great human being. Coach Glid is a super juiceful guy. Installing some stuff and getting to know each other and just getting on the board is what I like. So I really love the Jets. Really blessed to be able to have a meeting with them. And if I have an opportunity to play in New York, that like I said, they're going to get the best Ty Simpson they can get. Yeah, it certainly has helped, right? Like, you know, I'd like to say that, you know, he's helped me in a lot, in almost every situation. But in all reality, right, like I had to help, you know, myself in some aspects, right? Like, losing the job, you know, my first go around with Jalen, falling on my face at USF game, right? Like those were hard, you know, hard lessons that I had to learn and, you know, things that I had to deal with, you know, on my own. You know, my dad wasn't in the building. My dad, you know, wasn't there. I talked to him and asked him for guidance, and he gave me his 2 cents, right? But it was all on me. So you know, everything that I had that I dealt with in my career, it was all, you know, based off what, you know, I did and based off, you know, how I reacted, and that's life in general. But him being there, you know, like I said, spiritually and football wise, is, you know, everything that I could ask for. Has helped me actually look, you know, different aspects in football. My first jersey was a Brett Favre jersey. It was a Green Bay jersey. I don't know if I still have it, but guy being from Mississippi, like my dad was from Mississippi, played at Southern Miss. My dad played in Southern Miss, you know, Green Bay, like a guy who, you know, is a gunslinger, cuts it loose, you know, really enjoyed watching him and getting to know his family and stuff.
Out of curiosity, can you tell us the longest play call or memorized?
Ooh, the longest play call I had memorized.
Or just anyone that you
All right, so I'll give you one. This is a touchdown against Wisconsin. I hit Germ on the dig route. It was about the 45 to 50-yard line. So it would have been H swag to triple left narrow, Frito Tiger, Y Dover, Z Commander staple, right? So it's a Dover, it's an in cut by Germ, reading it man zone, had the motion to see what the defense was, and it was 3 week. So they spun down the one high, and Germ ran a good route. Isaiah pinned the hook player, and Germ made a great catch, and Lottie did a good job of clearing it out, and we scored.
When you talk to Mike McCarthy, what was that like with his quarterback development? What were you guys' conversations?
It was just, you know, just two guys working ball, right? Like, it was cool to just, you know, to see us, you know, talk about footwork, right? Like, talk about, you know, 4 verts, talk about situational football in 2 minute, like, you know, bringing up scenarios that he's had in his career to where they're crucial. Like, what would you do in that situation, right? So, you know, whether I got the question right or wrong, it was still cool to realize, like, you know, hey, this is what had happened. You know, this is what the answer I was looking for. This is why. And we would just, you know, bounce ideas back and forth to each other. Like a guy like that who, you know, has had success in the league for a long time and is well respected. You know, anytime that I get to sit in an interview and, you know, talk to him and just, you know, soak up all that knowledge is anything I could ask for.
When you went back and evaluated your season this past year, what were your most specific takeaways in evaluation?
You know, I think first off, right, like it didn't end the way that we wanted it to. I think that's, you know, disappointing. But like I said, I was very, very proud of my team and, you know, what we accomplished. I think that we were a very close-knit team, and that's what helped us in those long games. But I think one, right, like I had command of the offense, you know, had command of the line of scrimmage. I think that's, you know, what helped us a lot of getting us in the right play call, getting us in the right check, getting us in the right protection. Two, you know, I think that I did a better job in the middle of the later of the year, just taking completions and, you know, cutting the field in half and, you know, taking what they give me. But I also think, right, like later during the year, you know, instead of worrying about, you know, other stuff, whether it's like the rush or, you know, what blitz are they bringing, how they're pressuring, right, or just, you know, staying in the pocket and, you know, maybe taking a hit, but, you know, better pocket presence, staying grounded at the back of the drop, you know, just simple stuff, right, that is easy fixes, but, you know, just stuff that, right, you can get caught up in because you're trying to make sure that, right, like this is the right coverage for the right play and making the right, you know, decision at the right time.